Hello, hello.
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 Hi, everyone watching. Welcome to the August edition of the Blazor Community Stand-Up. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We've got a pretty interesting guest sharing a very awesome project in the Blazor ecosystem that we're going to be chatting with later today. Thanks for joining us on the show, Mladen.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. Now, as usual, we like to kick off the show with some introductions, community links, and then we get into the interesting stuff with Mladen. I'm Safia, your co-host. We've got Mladen with us today. And John, as per usual, is accompanying me on the stream. And we have a special friend joining today, Tanay. Tanay is a fellow engineer here at Microsoft. He's been working on the Blazor team for, how long have you been on the team, Tanay?
I've been about, on Blazor specifically, about 6 months or so now, if I remember correctly.
Got it. And before that, you were working on
the Razor team. So specifically, I was working on all the Razor tooling stuff. So things like the Visual Studio and a Visual Studio Code Razor tooling extension and all that kind of stuff that actually enables writing Razor code and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you've kind of always been working adjacent to or in Blazor land with all of
Yeah,
that.
for sure. And I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, super great to have you joining as a co-host of the show. I myself will be transitioning out as co-host. I am moving into a different team under the ASP.NET Core umbrella. So I'm going to be working more on some of the web framework related aspects of ASP.NET Core. If you've been following some of the work with minimal APIs that we've been doing, I'll be more involved with that. Things around MVC, gRPC, Orleans. I'll kind of be transitioning out of Blazor, which is why Tanay is taking on the helm as the co-host of the show alongside John. Thanks for offering to help, Tanay. I think this will be super fun.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me. I definitely agree. It should be a lot of fun. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And Tanay, you've been on before as part of the Razor team. So.
Yeah, for sure. So not my first time around, but yeah, it's definitely been a great experience every time. So really looking forward to it.
Very cool.
And yeah, really looking forward to engaging more with the community as well. So it should be pretty exciting.
Cool. Now, as your rite of passage for being a co-host, I've been sent out on a mission to scour the internet for some interesting Blazor-related links to show us for the community link segment. And I got a sneak peek of what you're going to be showing, and it looks pretty good. So I think it's time for you to show the people what you've got.
Awesome. Let's get started. Thanks.
Cool.
Let me just share my screen here. Hopefully you're able to see that. And here are the Blazor stand-up community links for August 21. So these are just a bunch of links from across the Blazor community of stuff that I found interesting and stuff that I'm sure that you may be able to use, learn from, and so on. So let's just dive right in. The first thing that I wanted to show off is this 30 seconds of Blazor. Now, this is inspired by the 30 seconds of code, which is popular in the React community, and it just provides a bunch of different components and extensions that you can use within your code base to just get stuff working right away, rather than actually having to wait for, rather than actually having to develop the components yourselves, and you can just focus on the application logic underneath. So, for example, let me open up something like the store rating component. Say I'm making a review site of some sort, I can just go ahead and drop in this component. It provides me with all the code that I need to get started, and I can just start working with the component. I don't have to write the component. I can focus on the application layer and the specific logic that I need. So yeah, this provides a bunch of great components that you can try out, and I would definitely encourage you to check it out if this is something you may find useful. So that wraps up that. Let's look at the next article here. Now, this article is about handling exceptions and specifically error boundaries within .NET 6. We introduced this feature in .NET 6 Preview 4, I believe, and it provides a more isolated way to handle exceptions. Normally, right now, if you have some sort of exception, you normally just see something like this: an unhandled exception has occurred. This has essentially crashed the entire application. The user has to reload it and to actually resume interactivity. Now, what error boundaries are, in just very general sense, is a way to isolate that exception within a particular component. So when something goes wrong, that component crashes rather than the entire application. So if I just scroll down a bit, okay, right here, you can see, okay, an error has occurred, but only that component has crashed rather than the entire application. So what this article is, it just gives a general overview of what error boundaries are, how to use them, and just some pitfalls you may want to avoid and that kind of stuff. So again, if this is something that you may find useful, I definitely recommend you check it out. Okay, let's move on. So the next two links are actually made by the same developer, and the first one is the Find Blazor source file extension. Now, essentially what this does is within a browser, while you're running the actual Blazor application, you can click around, see different components, and see what the actual component is behind the scenes by opening it up in Visual Studio. So as they're demonstrating here, they can highlight different areas, and if they find something interesting, they can just give it a quick click, and it opens up Visual Studio. Now, I think this would be particularly useful for anyone making any sort of demo applications with Blazor. So say if they want to showcase their framework or showcase their specific component library or something like that, doing this allows the developer to see, okay, what is that specific component called? What's the actual code behind the scenes? And how can we use it? So this is another extension that I think would see a lot of use within the Blazor community, and I'm really happy I can show it off here.
That seems like something also that you could turn on in debug mode. Like, so if your app's running in debug, then have it shown and otherwise not. That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Moving on from that one, the next one here is the awesome Blazor browser. Now, this is something that Daniel Roth, or PM, recommended, and it's an amazing, amazing resource that just shows a bunch of different projects within the Blazor community, as well as a bunch of different links and resources to learn more about different things like logging and security and that kind of stuff within Blazor. So for example, say I want to build a CMS solution. Here I see a bunch of different CMS options, how they're implemented in Blazor, and I can even open up, say, the GitHub repo and learn more about it here and see the code directly. So it can both serve as inspiration on different projects and what Blazor is capable of, as well as just a place that you can learn more about how to use different Blazor functionality, tooling, and that kind of stuff. So I think this is a great resource. I would definitely encourage everyone to check out if they're interested in learning more about, okay, what can Blazor actually be used for in the real world? And these are some great, great applications.
So one thing that I thought was really cool is just the filtering and search and how they work together. So if you click on categories in the upper left, and it unselects all of them. So if you click on that checkbox and then you click just like 2 or 3 different things, and then you type something, and then you search for whatever, like, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Then it filters that down. And I love how it pulls together all the things, including the components. And then if there's like, blog posts or other things on it. So it really is kind of a nice, quick way to filter down all the different things in the Blazor community. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I just having seen it pretty recently, I think it's going to be super useful just to learn more about, okay, how are people actually using Blazor in the real world, and yeah, how to make it.
Very cool.
I'm so used to doing Command F or Control F to search on the awesome Blazor GitHub page, so this totally solves that problem.
And honestly, when Dan first showed this to me, I thought, okay, it's neat, but I could just search in the web page. But seeing how it filters the different category areas and then also kind of groups them together really nicely, and I don't have to go next is really nice. So.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree with you on that one. Okay, so moving on to the next resource here, we have the end-to-end testing with Playwright. Now, this link isn't necessarily specific to the Blazor community, but it provides a great overview or a quick start guide onto actually how to use Playwright. Now, with Playwright, you can do end-to-end testing of different Blazor functionality. For example, if you have a sign-in page or sign-up flow or something like that you want to test out, you can do so directly using Playwright, have it fully automated, have it integrated with CI/CD, and it works with Chromium, Firefox, and all that kind of stuff. So it gives you a good breadth of test environments that you can actually get everything tested in, so you can ensure it's working every time and right away. And if you look through this article, it provides a bunch of different resources or information on how to actually use Playwright, some functionality it offers like timing, screenshotting, and network monitoring. And all that kind of stuff really helps with actually, okay, I've made an application, but how do I ensure it actually works at the end of the day? How do I ensure that, okay, it's not just this component and this component is working, but the end-to-end flow for the user so that we can provide a seamless experience. And just a little look behind the scenes here, the ASP.NET Core team is actually starting to use Playwright a lot more as well to do the Blazor internal testing, so ensuring the actual framework features are working as expected.
Awesome.
Cool. And let me move on to the last link here. So we've talked about, okay, we have a bunch of new components and functionality. We've talked about testing. Now let's actually talk about deploying. Through this link you see here, which is on Cloudflare, you can see how you can actually deploy the application directly from the GitHub repo into the cloud. So here they talk about, okay, you can create an application, you can specify the build script and so on. And once you set up the GitHub repo, you can integrate that directly with Cloudflare and have it deploy on every time you push to main or every time you push a commit into a PR branch. And this allows you to test, okay, is it working as expected? Or the different functionality working? Other developers within your team can test out, okay, you've developed this great new functionality in the PR, but can we actually see it work rather than just looking at the code? And I find that oftentimes visually, just having that representation makes things a lot easier to parse, and even it makes reviewing the PR easier. So I think this is a great functionality that's also available now for Blazor sites.
Oh, that's cool. Cloudflare is really interesting. You know, they started with this just like a geo-distributed kind of edge caching thing, and I've used it for personal blog posts or podcast, and saved like tons of bandwidth using that. And but then over time they've added a lot of really cool things, DDoS protection and other things. And this Cloudflare pages, they're serving applications and able to host and run WebAssembly and other things. It's really pretty neat.
Yeah, for sure.
I was really excited when I saw the blog post because I've been using Cloudflare for my personal website for probably about like 3 years now. It's like, this is the best crossover ever. It's really great to see Blazor kind of show up in all of these different places. It's just like, oh, I didn't even know that this piece of content was a thing. So it's always great to see it show up.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, that was a pretty neat collection of links today. I think people are going to be super excited about all the stuff you continue to bring on the show moving forward.
Thank you.
Now I think we're ready for the core topic of today's stand-up. Joining me today, and I'm going to try my best to pronounce this correctly, Mladen Macanović, correct?
Almost.
Almost.
Almost. It's Mladen Macanović.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Really excited to have you here today talking about a component library that you've been working on in the Blazor ecosystem, Blazorise. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over the mic to you to share all about it.
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to say thank you for having me today, and giving me the chance to present myself and Blazorise. So let's start. Okay. As Safia said, I'm Mladen Macanović. I've been working for as a Blazor developer for the last 3 years or more. Almost from the start of the Blazorise. So let's start. I would like to say sorry for everyone who's listening my bad English.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally doing great.
So for today's agenda, I will split talk into several sections. First, I'm going to talk about Blazorize, how it all started, then how it works behind the scene. Just the basic stuff. I will not go into too much details, and I will show some main features that are interesting from the user perspective, and that present Blazorize differently from other similar component libraries. And yeah, at the end, I will show demo that I created for this presentation, and also some nice application for that I will also show and give it for free for the viewers and everyone who likes to have it. Okay, so what is Blazorize? Blazorize, as we already know, is a component library for Blazor, and one of its main features is the ability to work with multiple different CSS frameworks, namely like Bootstrap, Bulma CSS, and Design, Material. Material is kind of different because it is based on the Bootstrap framework, so it's like kind of like cheating, but it also has its own special things that needs to be accounted for. So yeah, there was also one additional CSS framework supported by Blazorize, but since its creator wasn't very maintaining it very much, I had to drop support for it after many calls and that kind of stuff. So yeah, unfortunately, we dropped that one, but we will move on to other new frameworks like Bootstrap 5, for example, that is released recently. Okay, as I said, it supports all kind of CSS frameworks. It's oriented. It's when you write with my goal with Blazorize from the beginning was the ability to fast write the code. For example, I never liked using prefixes for naming components or any other class in C# for that matter, and I like my Razor code to look very clean. And what I mean by that, for example, let's just show quickly the home page of the demo application. As you can see, every component is like written in a way that it's self-descriptive. So you have a row, you have a column representing the column, the grid column. Then you have a alert component and all the parts that that is building based upon of. And the result is let me show it. Okay, like this. It's nice and simple. That's it. We will move later to some more advanced components, but for now, let's us continue. Oh yeah, I also forgot to say that not there are not just built-in CSS providers for Blazor. Users could also override the class provider that are coming with Blazorize and create their own providers for their own specific theme or CSS framework or whatever they want. Obviously, it's a lot of work to make it work because there are a lot of components, a lot of rules that needs to be accounted for, but it's possible. Some people are already done it for their own project, and yeah, it's is doable, definitely.
I think that can be really useful, for instance, in an enterprise where you have your own kind of design library, your own CSS, and you have maybe an architecture team or a front end team that kind of creates that, and then you just create the components. And for application developers, they can just focus on, writing clean
yes,
code.
definitely.
Yeah.
That was also the idea that you can, when you use Blazorize, you write it in, define the structure of the application, and if you later want to switch to for a built-in framework, CSS framework, or some other CSS framework, you can do that. You just change few lines of code, and that's it. Considering there are no too much changes done with custom code and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was the original idea, one of the original ideas when I started.
That's something I've been thinking about more lately. I've been writing more code for a website that uses Bootstrap, and it's custom Bootstrap build. And so it's Razor, and it's also Blazor, and my code is filled with it's HTML, and it's got tons of CSS or attributes and classes sprinkled throughout it. And I think about it, I could never easily change it, but with this sort of thing, you can just write the component code and then abstract that away. So
nice. It's never easy to, when you start writing some custom code, it's not easy to stop and go back to change it. So with this, I think from the start you're trying to write it in a good way so that you can later switch whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say I will now speak about how Blazorize work behind the scene in a easy way. So for example, let's say we have some simple component. For example, button is we all know how it's used, what it's used for, and it's mainly built upon the button element in HTML. In every CSS framework, there are some class names, some special attributes for that CSS framework. There can be in some cases different structure. Button can be nested inside of div element, or it can contain some special icon in some special cases, that kind of stuff. And what Blazorize does, I first create a basic button element that can be shared across different CSS frameworks. For example, if a button is not complicated, if it doesn't have some special rules, it can stay like that. Every CSS framework will use that structure. But in case there are some special rules, for example, Ant design framework can have some additional attribute, like data attribute on the button, then I create a button inside of Ant design project. I override it to be rendered by the Blazor by using the dependency injection. And once Blazor picks the button component, it will show that overridden button inside of Ant design. So that's it in a simple, the simplest way to describe it. I can show maybe the code inside of Blazor, just to show the. For example, let's go with. I hope the font is large enough. Okay, and let's go with Bulmar, for example. Okay. I'm just searching for a component that is already overwritten and that I can show as an example. Okay. Maybe not this one. Yeah, maybe this is the simplest. Heading and it's topography. Yeah, here. Okay, in this case, for example, in the core library, core Blazorise library, we have a heading component that is rendered based upon the tag name. For example, it can be with an age tag element like h1, h2, h3, or all up to the 6, and that's like the default element that will be rendered by the Blazor. And for example, in Bulma CSS, the heading element is defined as a paragraph. So for that use case, we need to override it, and then the actual number of the heading will be defined as a class name once it's rendered inside of the browser. So for example, if I go to the Bootstrap for the Bulma demo of Blazorise, we can show. Yeah. So it's rendered like this. While on the other hand, for Bootstrap demo, it will be rendered as regular. Yeah. See. So that's the simple example of one component that's rendered differently. This one is paragraph with class name, and this one element with a class name if it has the class name. So yeah. That's
we had a question in the chat about tailwind. Is that on the roadmap, or is that the one you mentioned? There was one that you previously supported and had to remove. Or?
No, the previous one was named a Frolic.
Okay.
It was like a simple CSS framework. For Tailwind, yeah, I have planned to support it, but with all current work, it's not easy to add an additional provider. It takes a really long time to do it. Yeah, and once it's done, you need to support that one continuously. Yeah. So for the next provider, I will use Bootstrap 5 because it's the easiest based upon the Bootstrap 4. Yeah.
That was the question there. Yeah, Bootstrap 5. Cool.
Yeah, don't worry. It will go with the next milestone, definitely. Yeah.
Well, seeing the work that you have to do to abstract that, I can understand that it's a lot of work you're doing there, because that's the frustration I have with switching between these different libraries. They're all nice, but you have to learn each person's their own kind of opinions and their own ways of structuring things. And it's not just that you have to change your attributes. You actually, like you showed there, you have to change your HTML structure. And so you're doing all the work to abstract that there. So that does seem like a lot of work.
Yeah, this was like a easy example, but there are some specific components, like a field component that is like a wrapper around the input components, buttons, and that kind of stuff. And it's specific because it requires a very specific use case based on the context. Where is it like on a form? Is it inside of a column or something else? And every situation needs some other rule to render. Yeah, so yeah, it can get complicated really soon. Definitely. Okay, so yeah, we can continue probably. I will not go into details anymore. I think we have enough information for this thing. Okay, so let's talk about the features. I already mentioned CSS providers, and that it can support many of them. The next thing is teaming. For example, one of the first versions of Blazor didn't have any teaming support except for the CSS frameworks, and it was requested many times until I managed to do it. For example, let's go to the demo application that it's always shows when people talk about Blazorize. And as you can see in the top right corner, there is like drop down with a bunch of colors. And if you go to the bottom page, it's like easiest to see what it changed. Okay, we will now change only the primary color of the components. Okay, see.
Oh.
As you can see now, every component in the application is overridden with special rules, CSS rules, styling, all the hover settings, disabled settings. As you can see, this and entire application is now overridden with the new color, like checkboxes, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
You can also see, I don't know, maybe this. Yeah, this kind of stuff.
Wow, that's nice. I can see that looks handy too for using with like accessibility checking in the browser and that sort of thing too.
Yeah, and it's very very easy to define custom theme. You only need to wrap the Blazor application around the theme provider, and then change settings for each of color options, background, text, like the typography options, that kind of stuff, and it will use that settings for the entire life of the application. Yeah, so that's one of the easy thing to easiest way to override any theme that you purchase from the web, from some theme web applications and that kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
with
that's
this,
great.
you can override it very, very easy.
Yeah, for sure. And even something like just with prototyping new applications, I can see this being super useful in just trying out different colors, seeing how it looks without necessarily having to go through a bunch of extended steps. You can just see right away, okay, how would green look or how would purple look and so on. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, usually when you get custom theme, you need to build it, get CSS included in the project, refresh application. With this, you just change it, rebuild, and it shows automatically. Yeah, there are a bunch of other settings that you can override, but I just included simple things to quickly show the example. And yeah, let's move on. The next couple of very interesting features that Blazorize, I think it's pretty unique to Blazorize. I don't think I've seen anything else similar to this. So I call it the fluent utilities, and the way it's used is, for example, if we have the simplest example is if we have in Bootstrap CSS, we can define a different column sizes based on the mobile settings, like a tablet, desktop, in a way that you want to decide how to render the web page to be responsive to, I don't know. I will just show quickly to go. Where is it? Okay. I just want to show this. Okay. Yeah, this. I guess almost everyone here has seen Bootstrap column sizes. So this is basically it. It's used to combine multiple settings in a single line, like without going to define every setting separately. Like in other Blazor component libraries, you need to define that they use it in a way that every setting is a different parameter. Like is I don't know, size 6 on the mobile, is size 8 on the desktop, that kind of stuff. And with Blazorize, it's a lot easier because you need to just combine. So for example, you see the column, you define column size to use 4 spaces on tablet, then 3 spaces on widescreen, and that kind of stuff. So just combine, and it will render the component based on that settings. And if we go to the demo, for example, okay, maybe we can go, yeah. Where is it? Yeah, here. No. Yeah, sorry. Let's go to the default. Okay. As you can see, this is like defined as is12, and that's that's like syntax for defining. It starts with is, because I don't like using underscores for like member names, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I chose the is keyword to represent the sizes. And if we go to inspect the code, you can see it represents column 5. In this case, it's column 7 in this case. And you can combine it. You can define column 3 with offset 3. Yeah, like this.
Okay. One nice thing about Fluent APIs is that you get the IntelliSense completion.
Yeah.
Since that's in an attribute, does that still work for you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
We can show in the code. So
Nice.
for example, yeah, we can go to here. It's fine. Dot. And now you on where you can do it like on desktop, and then you can continue defining it. You can do it like this, is auto on, I don't know, widescreen, something like that.
That's nice, because one of the frustrations with these is you have to type them just right, and if you make a typo in the CSS or in the HTML attribute, it just doesn't work. You don't get an error message, but it just doesn't show up right.
Yeah.
So this is nice to have that autocomplete.
Yeah, definitely. And you can also always since it's auto-completed, or like it's hard-coded, you can also like define it globally as a static member or something like that, and reuse settings across the application. You can you don't need to write for each individual component special settings, that kind of stuff. You can share it globally, and yeah, we'll use like that.
I'm curious how that's implemented, or like what type is that column size?
It starts as a static class.
Okay.
Like maybe I can show in Blazorize.
I mean, this is kind of a nerdy question, but I'm just
I'm
curious how you implemented that through there.
Yeah, to easy maintain it, everything is located in each file for that specific functionality. So it's not separated into multiple files. So yeah, maybe not a very pretty thing to write, but yeah, it works. Okay, let's see. It starts as a static class because I don't want to have a new column size, like new keyword each time. And this is just like public parameter property. It just creates new Fluent column and defines its size. And then inside of the actual, let's see like this. It has like these special rules that start like size, and then once the size is defined, it will define a rule for that size. Like it's 5, do this. When this, do this. That kind of stuff. Yeah, it's like layman terms. It's pretty easy internally. It just has like a dictionary of settings for each size, and yeah, that's it. And based on those settings, the Blazorize will generate the class names for different scenarios. For example, in some cases, for example, for Bootstrap CSS, the call keyword as a class name must not be defined all the times. So that kind of stuff are done by Blazorize. So it's not just you define the size and it will show it. It needs to trigger special case based upon the CSS framework currently used. So yeah, that kind of stuff. Okay, we can move on. There are like other similar Fluent utilities, like display utility, flex utility, that I guess you also are familiar with them. For example, yeah, this one, where you can define like flex utilities. Is it going to be direction, like justify content, align items, that kind of stuff, and they're used in a similar way. Like okay, let's go like this. We started as flex, and then justify content, for example, between, and we can also align items on the start, that kind of stuff. And it will we can also like define to do it only on desktop sizes, that kind of stuff. And if we try to build this, yeah, it renders this deflex, justify content between, align items, start on medium screens. That's it. It's easier, and I think it's pretty easy to, at least for me, it's easy to read the code and see what's meant to do. I don't know. It's a lot easier than have a bunch of class names like call 5, medium, that kind of stuff. And then if you include like Bulma CSS or InDesign with their own special class names and that kind of stuff, it gets really complicated. And with this, you only have one thing. That's it. It does all the things behind the scene for your own good. Okay. The next thing is typography utilities. This was like a main feature introduced with the last Blazorize version, and I had to support it because previously, like text color or text alignment, that kind of stuff, they were only able to do on like the typography components, like heading, paragraph, simple text, that kind of stuff. And I had to move everything to a base Blazorize component. And I wanted to do that because you can define text color now on every component, like on a card, on a column, or I don't know, on an alert, whatever. And it allows for a lot easier customization of the web apps like themes and other like special rules depending on each individual application. And yeah, previously that was really limited to do in Blazorize, and with the previous version, I enabled that to be a lot easier to do. And there are like borders, shadows. All this can be seen in the demo, like borders. They are also supporting Fluent utilities. You can combine them, define borders for all sides, or only on top, right, bottom, left, or you can do a combination like top and bottom, left, right, that kind of stuff. You can combine them with the colors, define special rules for rounded borders, all kind of stuff. And for example, shadows, sizing, like almost everything here is done with Fluent syntax. And that was a lot of work to do for the previous version, but it was really worth it in the end. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, let's move on. Other thing I like to talk is localization. In Blazorize we have okay. I will for this demo use server side because it has better support for this localization names. Okay, so if we go maybe here, we have custom localization support for Blazorize. We don't use built-in is iString localizer. I think it's named like that because I wanted to have ability to change text or localization live while application is running without the need to refresh the application. For example, in server sites Blazor, you can update localization and it will show immediately to the user. It will be changed. But in Blazor WebAssembly, that is not possible, and you need to refresh the app. And I wanted to for that to wanted to not do that. And for example, you can just change this. It looks like ugly. It changes sizes of the buttons, but you need to account for that based on the user settings and that kind of stuff. And if we go to the WebAssembly application, it also changes live immediately. It doesn't refresh application, and it just works, as you can see.
Oh.
And it's using JSON files for the actual localization settings.
What is the work that you need to do as a developer to implement the different, to write the localized text and things?
If you're going to implement custom files for localization, you just need to include JSON file as a resource, and it will be picked based upon the name of the file. For example, if you use localization for for the data grid, it will, based upon that name, get the settings inside the memory. It will read it. It will add the language to the list of the supported language, and you can show it to the user. Or you can just include it using the built-in class, or localizer service .add language, and it will show like that. There are a bunch of ways to do it. Maybe show this. This is the new documentation. Sorry. Yeah, they can use it like this. So they use file at the localizer, a language resource, and then a bunch of settings for that language. And that's it. Yeah, it's pretty easy to do and use.
Cool.
Okay, moving on. If there are any questions, I can answer.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
had
there's a-
one. Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, we had one question show up in the chat, which I was curious to get your take on, which is, what are the current limitations of Blazorize? Are there scenarios where you would recommend developers use it and scenarios where they shouldn't?
Mainly, there are some components that are still not supported. For example, we don't have support for scheduler, like calendar component. For example, like a tree component is limited in some cases, but with each version that we release, we slowly add that kind of stuff. So for the next release, we definitely will include scheduler. We will also create like a token component where you have like autocomplete component with multiple tokens or tags when you type something in search field, and it will add those kinds of stuff. Like I think some people call it snacks or that kind of stuff. I don't know. So yeah, that are the main things that I would not recommend Blazor, but we're slowly getting there to support everything that we can.
That's something I was wondering about, is because you're wrapping components that are in these different libraries, and then you may have something that's in 3 but not the 4th, or that sort of thing.
Yeah, for those kind of situation, we create like custom code based upon that CSS framework.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not just override this, override that. You need to do some custom code. Yeah, definitely a lot of work. Okay, before I go to, I think this is going to be the last thing that I will work, or maybe I can just show the demo for this thing. I don't know how much time we have. Okay, I will close this stuff. Okay. So for this stand-up, I created like simple web app in Blazor to show some basic Blazor components. And yeah, as you can see, there are like simple button components, simple input based upon native HTML elements. There are like text input. I call it text edit in Blazorize. They all have like a suffix edit, because originally Blazor was pretty limited regarding the naming of components. So with time, yeah, it kind of stuck with like that, and I don't have a good alternative to name it differently. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe it will change in the future. Yeah. So for now, definitely it will stay like this. And one of the limitation with the native components, for example, we can see the date component. It creates a natively type date. The problem with this is that type date is fully controlled by the Blazor and system settings, and you cannot change the display format. It's fully done by the by the browser. So to overcome that, I have created a new set of the components. For example, this one is named date edit component. This one, and the new component is date picker. And date picker is based upon third party component library that is used by the Blazor as it wraps that library and like shows different calendar settings or UI to the user based on the like, is it a Bootstrap, is it a Bulma CSS and design, that kind of stuff. And it has a way to change display format, edit format, and all kind of stuff that native components are not able to do. So user can, when he use Blazor, he can choose, is it going to be native, is it going to be like custom component kind of stuff. And I plan to do similar things for like numeric. Numeric is still like somewhere in between. It's using like native settings, but there are some custom JavaScript code to change display settings, that kind of stuff. So with time, it will also have its own custom component, while only native part will go into the numeric edit, that kind of stuff. Okay, moving on. For example, we started with validation. Yeah. Okay. One of the very nice features with Blazorize is that it's not strictly bound to the native Blazor validation. We have our own validation system that currently supports out of the box 3 kind of validation systems. There are method validators, regex patterns, and data annotations. And user can, for each component currently on the page, the user can choose how the input will be validated. For example, the default validation method is data annotation. And if the model, like if the user defines the model on the form, on the page, it will use that settings. If it's overridden with the validation method, it will override the data annotation and use that. Otherwise, it can also use a regex pattern. So it can combine different settings based on the specific project. It doesn't need to be just data annotations. You can mix whatever you want. Yeah. And one of the nice features recently, we introduced asynchronous validation. Yeah. So for example, the user can type something inside of Hiris, and behind the scene, it will, like, you can show connect to the backend API to do, I don't know, backend service or kind of stuff, and it will wait for the validation to be done. Like, show in the code how it's done. Okay. So it's pretty easy to do. So we have numeric field. It's called numeric edit, and we wrap everything, like we wrap component inside of validation component. And this validation is actually controlling the actual validation process or the system. So in this case, we are using async validation. Async validator, it's like calling a method used by the validation process. And inside of it, we have a cancellation like cancellation system. For example, user can type fast inside of the input, and if we didn't have a way to cancel previous request, it will like do a bunch of stuff. It will refresh page without control, and it will lose the state. And in this case, we're just calling simple delay method to simulate connecting to the REST API or backend system, and we're setting the status result and presenting it to the UI, to the user, and it works pretty good, I think. You can write as fast as you want. I think we had the limit. Yeah, that's it. It waits. That's itself.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do, and also other validation methods are done similarly. We can have like standard validation method. As you can see, for async we use async validator. For default we use just a validator method, and there are like special or like built-in methods like this one. Is not empty, like is alphanumeric, is email, like 10 or 15, I don't know, built-in methods to validate the string or other values. And you can use those, or you can create your own special method and use that for validation process. You can, like in this case, validate email based on your settings for the email system, whatever you have. You can use a method for validation of checkboxes, that kind of stuff. And we also have regex validation. It's pretty easy. It's just you use pattern parameter and define the use pattern parameter on the validation component. That's it. It's pretty basic. Yeah.
There's a lot of very positive comments. Everyone loves this. This is really cool.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You've done a lot of great things here. One is building this abstraction, architecting things well. Another is that you have good documentation and demos. And I think a lot of projects will just dump you onto a README on a GitHub page, and you have to try and figure out what the project does. And so I loved when I was preparing for this and looking at your site, and it's like immediately you have a good walkthrough, like very easy to get started and understand how to get going with this.
Yeah, it didn't start like that. It was a process to go from do it like this to go to like show it in an easy way how to use Blazorize. So it was like a process, and it was like one of the original ideas, because the documentation was new to me. I'd never done those kind of stuff, so I learned stuff as I go. So yeah, definitely.
So speaking of that, it's a lot of work, and you're doing documentation and development and all that. Are there other people contributing to the project? Is it easy for other people?
David yes. From time to time, some people go contribute to the project, fix bugs, include new features. One of the guys that was originally helping me to fix some bugs was David Moreira, and he recently started working partially for Blazorize project, and he really helped a lot recently once we started working together. So far I was mostly alone, and that's it.
So for people, they can just go out to the repo and look at issues and
definitely.
Cool.
Well, that's the beauty of open source. Everyone can go and create a PR and see how it goes. And most of the times I will just include it, maybe fix or review it a little. But most of the times it's really good contribution.
There was a suggestion from Daniel, and I think it's pretty easy to get started, but there are a few steps where you need to add something to your, there's a few places you modify your startup. So Daniel's suggesting having a project template that has everything pre-configured.
Yeah, definitely. It's planned for one of the next version, but since it's constantly changing, we will need to keep track of template projects, that kind of stuff. So for now, until we clear the API for the next milestone, we will definitely focus on that part of the Blazorize, definitely.
Cool. I just going through a few questions. There have been so many, a lot of good reaction here. Jose is asking if you recommend MVC, MVVM, or MVU. It seems like to me, really any of these would work because you're building a component layer, and so the back end is kind of up to you.
It's not limited to any of these ways of doing the application state or whatever, or UI. It's Blazorise is just the component part. You can use it in any way that you want. For example, on the button component, a long time ago, I have added support for the command. I think it's used mainly for the MVVM. So it supports that kind of programming. So yeah, it's cool. Not just native like click, hover, that kind of stuff.
So there's a question for enterprise application. Do you recommend it, and can it adapt to other design systems in the future and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I have created personally a bunch of enterprise applications, and still creating it. Have a lot of applications for my employers, clients, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely worth it to use.
Well, so we focus so far on the open source, everything like that. It's available as an open source project. You do offer commercial option, and I think that's really good because for an enterprise, they want to be able to pay for support. They want to, not just have an open source project they worry about is going to go away if somebody just loses interest.
Yeah,
I think it's great to have it. So what is your commercial plan? What does that give? Why? What are the reasons for getting that?
The main reason, well, there was a lot of work done with Blazorise. Initially, it started really small. There was like 2 CSS frameworks supported. With time, I added a bunch of components. A lot of bug fixes were requested. A lot of features were requested. And since a lot of people started using it and a lot of companies started using it, it was hard to keep track. I was mostly alone for the last 3 years or maybe more. And for the last couple of months prior to me going with commercial licensing, I was really hard to think how to proceed. Should I abandon the project? I really loved work with Blazorise, and I think this was the most the best way to proceed. I still wanted to be free to everyone, but for like large companies, I will introduce licensing, and with that I would get help from other people. Like in this case, David was the first one to join, and it was a lot easier from there on. And I plan to do the same in the future to get a lot of people on board, and it will definitely be a lot faster to do other stuff.
That's a good point. And so sometimes I think if you're selling it to your boss at work, it's nice to be able to say, look, we get support and we get access to additional themes and those sorts of things. But also a really important part is just to support the development of a product you love and you want to stay around and you want more features faster. That's how it happens, is by supporting a project.
Yeah. And it's still open source project. It's just that I wanted to be fair to everyone, like small companies and personal people use it for free, and the other side of the table, I think it's fair to share, help. And I think it's working fine so far. We'll see for the future, definitely. I don't know how much time we have. I just want to show one last thing before we go.
That sounds great.
I created this for this stand-up. Okay, so the source code for this will be available on GitHub. It's already available, so anyone can see it. It's basically showing a bunch of Blazorise components in a live, real world scenario for e-commerce application. It has like it uses how it's called. My brain is stuck now. Yeah, carousel.
Oh,
Carousel, carousel for
Awesome.
sliding images. It has bunch of cards below it, show different categories, and if we go to any of the links, it shows a way to combine. So, for example, it uses a lot of utility fluent APIs inside of Blazorise. In this case, the column utilities. So it works on mobile, as you can see.
Wow.
Yeah, it's applying like a medium class name for this side of the application of the UI. It has a bunch of different settings. Yeah, you can show it like a grid, like a list. You can add it to the card. I created this like over the weekend for this presentation, and it just shows how quickly you can create anything with Blazor. So if you know what to do, you can delete it, and like I think 99% is just Blazor code. There are some special rules like or styling to fix some small sorry, some small things. For example, I'm just showing some negative stuff that I will fix in the future, definitely. And this was also a way to learn those negative parts. Yeah. So, for example, I had to do this rule for the autocomplete for add-on autocomplete because there was like this small bump next to the field. And yeah, just wanted to fix that. So for example, this is one of the special components for Blazorise. This search field, it's called autocomplete, and it uses like in-memory list of values, and you can filter them and show to the user, and that kind of stuff. Okay, and now you can go to make a purchase. There is a validation on this page, and if we go fill it, that's it. And it uses like alert, like a model dialog based upon the model service that we recently created and that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot of code, but yeah, it was worth it.
This is a really cool demo. Is this, so I'm looking on your repo, you've got Blazorise Community Stand-Up. Is that the?
Yeah, yep, definitely.
Okay, I'll share that out in the chat. This is amazing.
Yeah, that looks incredible. Thank you so much. Before we go, I just had one final question for you. In terms of next steps, where do you see this framework going? What are some features or areas that you're working on and that you're excited about?
So for the next milestone, I plan to first add support for Bootstrap 5. That will be, I think, the major new feature for the next milestone. Its current version is 0.94, and the next one is 0.95, including the Bootstrap. And that version will introduce new features, and with that version, it's like a way to 1.0 version. And every bug that we introduce or anything that comes up with that version, we will clear it up and prepare and clean the code for the 1.0. And that's the plan, I think, for the November of this year. It's 0.95. And then a few months after that, after we clear some bugs, some small API fixes, it will be 1.0. That's the main milestone for now.
Okay, that sounds incredible. I'm looking forward to seeing all that come to fruition. Well, that just about wraps it up for today. Thank you so much, Mladen. I really appreciate you. We all do showing all these wonderful features for Blazorize. And yeah, thank you. And on top of that, thank you, Safia, for putting all this together. Really appreciate you doing all these community stand-ups, and I hope to carry the torch forward. So thank you. And thanks, John.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys, and yeah, Safia, good luck with the new team.
Thank you.
We'll get her back on the show. Don't worry.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Mladen. This was really inspiring and exciting to see this. So
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, see you maybe next time.
All right. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
John.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.